Hawaii. The very name conjures images of paradise on Earth. A string of emerald jewels set in an endless sapphire ocean. We see postcard images of turquoise waters lapping against pristine white sands, of vibrant flowers blooming under a sun that always seems to shine. It is sold to us as a sanctuary, an escape from the noise and chaos of the modern world. But this is a carefully constructed illusion. It is a thin, beautiful veneer painted over something far older, far more primal. Because long before the resorts and the tourists, before the concrete and steel ever touched these shores, the islands were a place of immense power. A land born of volcanic fury, where the earth itself is alive, breathing fire and steam. And with that power comes secrets. If you stand on the black volcanic rock at midnight, far from the lights of Honolulu, you can feel it. A weight in the air. A presence in the crushing darkness between the stars. The gentle trade winds that cool your skin during the day can feel like a cold whisper at night, carrying stories that were never meant for outside ears. The shadows cast by the towering cliffs and jagged peaks do not just hide the land. They hide history, they hide beings, and they hide truths that our modern understanding of the world simply cannot contain. The ancient Hawaiians understood this. They knew of the kapu, the sacred prohibitions. They knew of the spirits that walked the lava fields and the ancient warriors who still march on moonless nights. They knew that paradise always has a price, and that some places are not meant to be disturbed. Today we are going to ignore those warnings. We are going to step off the beaten path and journey into the heart of 7 of Hawaii's most unsettling mysteries. These are not simple ghost stories or local legends to be dismissed. These are events, phenomena, and enduring beliefs that actively defy scientific explanation, challenging the very bedrock of what we believe to be real. So if you are ready to look past the illusion and see the chilling truth that lies beneath, then join us on this journey into the unknown. If you are new here, we delve into the dark corners of the world, uncovering the stories that have been forgotten or ignored. Make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell, so you never miss a descent into the unexplained. Now turn down the lights and let us begin. Our first journey into Hawaii's unexplained phenomena takes us to the island of Maui, but not to the manicured resorts or the bustling surf spots. We must travel the infamous Hana Highway, a winding ribbon of asphalt that clings precariously to the island's lush northeastern coast. After navigating its hairpin turns and narrow stone bridges, we must then find a hidden unmarked trail. This path is steep, treacherous and slick with red mud. It is a trail that seems designed to discourage visitors, a natural barrier protecting a place that feels as if it belongs to another world entirely. At the bottom of this difficult descent lies Kaihālulu Beach. It is, without exaggeration, one of the most surreal landscapes on the planet. The sand is not white or gold, but a deep, shocking blood red. This crimson shore is the result of the constant erosion of the crumbling cinder cone that encircles the cove like a broken amphitheater, a volcano's heart laid bare to the elements. The water is not a gentle, welcoming blue, but a churning, violent turquoise that smashes against a jagged wall of black lava rock just offshore. The name Kaihālulu in the native Hawaiian language means roaring sea, and the name is an understatement. The sound of the ocean here is a constant, deafening percussion, a powerful angry roar that never ceases. The air is thick with salt spray and the coppery scent of iron-rich earth. It is a place of raw, violent beauty, a cove that feels both sacred and profoundly dangerous. But the color of the sand and the fury of the waves are not the source of its deepest mystery. The true enigma of Kaihālulu Beach is the sand itself. Because sometimes, without warning or explanation, it simply vanishes. This is not the gradual, predictable process of tidal erosion that affects coastlines all over the world. This is something else entirely. Locals and the few intrepid travelers who know of this hidden place have reported a phenomenon that defies simple geology. They will visit the beach one afternoon and find a wide, sloping expanse of rich, red sand stretching from the cliffside to the water's edge. They will return the very next morning, under calm skies and with no change in the tide, to find a massive section of it gone. Not shifted, not pulled out into a sandbar, but utterly and completely absent, leaving behind nothing but the stark black volcanic rock beneath. It can be a crescent-shaped bite taken out of the shoreline, or an entire half of the beach scoured clean, with the remaining edge of sand forming a perfect, unnatural line, as if sliced away by a colossal blade. Weeks, or sometimes just days later, the sand may reappear just as mysteriously as it vanished. A cove that was barren rock one evening might be covered once more in its crimson blanket by the next dawn. Geologists have, of course, studied this. The official explanation is that the beach is caught in a geological battle. The fragile cinder cone provides the sand, but the cove lacks a protective reef, leaving it exposed to powerful swirling currents that can dredge the sand and pull it out into deeper water, only to be redeposited by a change in that same current. This sounds logical, a neat and tidy scientific answer. But it fails to satisfy those who have witnessed the phenomenon firsthand. The scientific explanation does not account for the sheer speed and scale of the disappearances. It does not explain how tons of heavy, wet sand can be completely removed from a cove overnight without the force of a major storm or a tsunami. Nor does it explain the unsettling precision of the disappearances, the clean lines and deliberate shapes left behind. This is where science steps back and the ancient lore of the island steps forward. Hawaiian elders speak of Kaihalulu not as a geological feature, but as a place of immense spiritual significance, a piko or sacred center, where the veil between worlds is thin. They speak of the Moo, the great shape-shifting lizard spirits that act as guardians of the island's freshwater sources and sacred pools. Legend says that Kaihalulu was once the home of a powerful Moo queen, and that the land itself is still under her protection. The vanishing sands, according to this belief, are not a product of ocean currents, but a deliberate act of cleansing. When the sacred cove is disrespected by outsiders, when its energy is disturbed, the guardians simply remove the sand, taking it away to a place where it cannot be tainted, only returning it when the land has been purified. It is an act of reclamation, a silent, powerful warning to those who do not belong. There are countless unsettling accounts that seem to support this belief over the geological theories. A hiker from California shared a story online a few years ago. He and his wife made the trek down to the beach in the late afternoon. He described taking a photograph of his wife standing on the southern half of the beach, a vast expanse of red sand behind her. They were the only two people there. He wrote of a strange feeling that grew as the sun began to set. A palpable sense of being watched from the crumbling cliffs above. They felt an inexplicable urge to leave, and quickly. They returned the next morning, hoping to capture the cove in the bright morning light. When they reached the bottom of the trail, they stood in stunned silence. The entire southern half of the beach where his wife had been standing was gone. A sheer drop-off of sand led to glistening black rock. There were no footprints, no signs of disturbance, just a profound and impossible absence. The ocean was calm, the sky was clear. Nothing in the physical environment could explain it. A local man from Hana, whose family has lived on that stretch of coast for generations, refuses to go near the cove after midday. He tells a story not of witnessing the sand disappear, but of hearing it. He was a teenager, fishing from the cliffs above the beach with his uncle as dusk settled. The roar of the sea was constant as always, but then another sound began to emerge from beneath it. He described it as a deep, resonant humming, a vibration that seemed to come from the very rock they were standing on. It was accompanied by a sound like a million whispers, a sibilant dragging noise. His uncle, without a word, packed their gear and grabbed him by the arm, pulling him away from the cliff edge. He told his nephew never to look down into the cove when the land is breathing. He explained that what they were hearing was the land taking itself back. And to witness such a sacred act was a kapu, a taboo so profound it could invite misfortune or worse. So what is truly happening at Kaihalulu Beach? Is it merely an unusual but ultimately explainable geological quirk, a perfect storm of fragile rock and powerful currents? If so, why does not it happen with such dramatic and rapid effect on other, similarly formed beaches around the world? Why do the disappearances seem so precise, so deliberate, or is it something more? Is this secluded cove a place still governed by ancient laws and guarded by primordial forces we have long forgotten? Is the very ground we stand on there not truly ours to visit, but a sacred space that can be offered and just as quickly taken away? The mystery of the vanishing sands of Kaihalulu remains a stark reminder that even in paradise, some places hold secrets the earth is not yet ready to share. From the elemental mysteries of the land, we now turn to the spirits that walk upon it. For our second mystery, we travel to Oahu, the most populated of the Hawaiian Islands and home to the bustling metropolis of Honolulu. Here, among the high-rise hotels of Waikiki and the sprawling suburbs, it can be easy to forget that you are standing on ancient, sacred ground. But the island has not forgotten. And on certain nights, when the moon is hidden and a profound stillness falls over the land, the island reminds its modern inhabitants of its past in the most terrifying way imaginable. For these are the nights of the Hukai'po, the night marchers. This is not your typical haunting. These are not the lonely, lost souls of popular ghost stories. The night marchers are something far more formidable. They are the spectral phalanx of ancient Hawaiian warriors, fully clad in the regalia of their time, intricate feathered helmets and capes, armed with ghostly spears and clubs. They are said to be the honor guard for a high-ranking ali'i, a chief or chiefess of immense spiritual power, who is either marching to a sacred battle from the past or being escorted in death to the realm of the gods. Their presence is not a whisper, but a terrifying proclamation. It begins with a sound that rises from the darkness, a sound that strikes a primal fear into the hearts of those who hear it, the distant rhythmic pounding of war drums. The drums are soon joined by the haunting, mournful call of a conch shell trumpet, a sound that echoes across the valleys and through the dense foliage. Then comes the low, guttural chanting, a chorus of ghostly male voices reciting ancient mele or songs, in a language few now understand. As the procession draws closer, the air grows cold, a foul, deathly odor fills the night, and the ground itself is said to tremble. Then the first lights appear. A line of flickering, ethereal torches, held aloft by unseen hands, weaving a path through the darkness. This is the procession of the Hukai'po, and to be caught in their path is to face a terror from which there is little escape. The origins of this legend are deeply woven into the fabric of Hawaiian history and culture. In ancient Hawaii, the ali'i were considered direct descendants of the gods. Their mana, or spiritual power, was so immense that it was forbidden for a commoner to even let their shadow fall upon the chief. Strict kapu, or taboos, governed all interactions with them. To break these kapu was to invite an immediate and often fatal punishment. The night marchers are the eternal continuation of this sacred law. In death as in life, the chief is protected, and the procession demands the same absolute respect. They are not marching randomly. They follow ancient trails, many of which are now tragically covered by modern roads, homes, and even luxury resorts. The marchers do not recognize our world. They walk the paths of their time, and anything, or anyone, standing in their way is in mortal danger. The warnings passed down through generations of kamerena, or local residents, are unwavering and delivered with the utmost seriousness. If you are ever outdoors at night and you hear the distant drums, you must not be overcome with curiosity. You must not try to get a closer look. Your only goal is to seek immediate shelter and hide. If you are caught out in the open with nowhere to run, the instructions are terrifyingly specific. You must strip off your clothing, lie face down on the ground, and remain absolutely still. You are to avert your eyes, for to look upon the face of a marcher, or especially the high chief they escort, is to seal your own doom. You must feign death, showing the ultimate sign of respect and submission. You will feel the ground shake as they pass, hear their footsteps in the dirt beside you, perhaps even feel the heat from their spectral torches. You must fight every instinct to look up until the last sounds have faded completely into the distance. There is only one potential reprieve. It is believed that if you have an ancestor among the marching spirits, one of them may recognize their own bloodline lying on the path. In an act of spectral mercy, this ancestor may call out "Na-you," meaning mine, claiming you as their own and warning the others not to harm you. But this is a desperate hope, not a guarantee. While skeptics might dismiss these tales as mere folklore, the sheer volume and consistency of eyewitness accounts, stretching from the pre-contact era to the present day, is staggering. Countless credible individuals, police officers, military personnel, park rangers, and ordinary residents have reported encounters that have left them shaken for life. One of the most famous locations for night marcher activity is the Kalani Honor Roll Highway on Oahu's eastern coast. A police officer on a late-night patrol in the 1980s reported a terrifying encounter. He heard the unmistakable drums and, rounding a bend, saw a procession of torches moving across the highway ahead of him. His modern mind tried to rationalize it: a luau, a ceremony, a protest. But as he got closer, his patrol car's engine suddenly died, and all the electronics went haywire. The procession continued its silent, deliberate march directly through the solid rock face of the cliff on the other side of the road and vanished. The moment the last torch disappeared into the stone, his car started up again as if nothing had happened. Another chilling account comes from a couple who bought a new home in the Mililani area, a large suburban development built on land that was once the site of major ancient battles. For weeks after moving in, they would be woken late at night by the sound of rhythmic chanting that seemed to come from inside their own walls. Their dogs would whimper and hide, refusing to go near the living room. One night, they were woken not by chanting, but by a deafening drum beat that seemed to be right outside their bedroom window. Peeking through the blinds, the husband saw a sight that froze his blood. A line of tall, muscular, shadowy figures was marching directly through his neighbor's yard, each holding a spear and illuminated by a strange, flickering light that cast no shadow. They moved with a terrifying purpose, their eyes glowing with a faint reddish light. He ducked down, pulling his wife to the floor, and they lay there, paralyzed with fear, until the sounds slowly faded away. They later learned from an elderly Hawaiian neighbor that their entire neighborhood was built directly across a sacred Hukai'po path, leading from the mountains to the sea. Of course, there is no physical evidence. No recordings have ever captured the unearthly chanting, no photographs have ever clearly shown the spectral warriors. Skeptics propose logical explanations. The wind whistling through volcanic rock formations can mimic the sound of a conch shell. Flashes of distant car headlights can be mistaken for torches. The power of suggestion in a culturally rich environment can lead to mass hysteria. But these explanations crumble under the weight of thousands of consistent, independent testimonies. How can the wind cause multiple sober witnesses in different locations on different islands to report the exact same sequence of events: drums, conch shell, chanting, cold spots, and the smell of decay? How can power of suggestion cause a car's electrical system to fail and then restart in perfect sync with a paranormal event? The belief in the night marchers is not a quaint relic of the past. It is a living, breathing reality for many in Hawaii. It is a powerful reminder that the modern world is just a thin layer placed upon an ancient one, a world with its own rules, its own laws, and its own terrifying enforcers. Whether they are a psychic echo of the past, a mass hallucination, or the genuine spirits of warriors bound to an eternal duty, the experience for those who encounter them is undeniably real. And so, if you ever find yourself on a lonely Hawaiian road late at night, and hear the faint rhythmic pounding of a drum, know that you are not just hearing a sound. You are hearing a warning. A warning to show respect, to get out of the way, and to pray that you are not the one they have come for. Our next mystery takes us to the oldest and northernmost of the main Hawaiian islands, Kauai. Known as the Garden Isle, it is a land of dramatic, emerald cliffs, thundering waterfalls, and ancient rainforests so dense they remain largely impenetrable to this day. It is a landscape that feels prehistoric, a place where time itself seems to have slowed. And it is here, within the deep mist-shrouded valleys and the labyrinthine jungles, that we find stories of Hawaii's most elusive and enigmatic inhabitants, the Menehune. These are not the mischievous leprechauns of Irish folklore or the garden gnomes of European fairy tales. The Menehune of Hawaiian legend are a race of master builders, described as being small in stature, perhaps only 2 or 3 feet tall, but possessing prodigious strength and unparalleled skill in engineering and stonework. They were nocturnal, working only under the cover of darkness, and so shy that they would abandon any project if they were discovered by human eyes. They were the original inhabitants of the islands, a society that existed long before the first Polynesian voyagers arrived from the Marquesas and Tahiti. They lived in the deepest forests, emerging only at night to accomplish feats of construction that still baffle archaeologists and engineers today. To understand the mystery of the Menehune, one must go and see their handiwork, for it is etched directly into the landscape of Kauai. The most famous and compelling piece of evidence is a structure known as the Kikiarola, or the Menehune Ditch, near the town of Waimea. At first glance, it might look like a simple irrigation channel, but a closer inspection reveals something extraordinary. It is an ancient aqueduct, built to carry water from the Waimea River to the surrounding taro fields. The walls of this ditch are constructed from massive, precisely cut basalt stones. What is so astounding is the joinery. These stones, some weighing hundreds of pounds, are fitted together with such perfect precision that you cannot slip a knife blade between them. There is no mortar. The smooth, dressed faces and intricate interlocking of the blocks represent a level of stonemasonry that is found nowhere else in ancient Hawaii or indeed in all of Polynesia. Traditional Hawaiian stonework, while impressive, typically involved stacking uncut, natural stones to build walls and foundations. The Hukai'po ditch is an anomaly, a piece of technology that simply should not exist for its time and place. Legend states that the local chief, a man named Kamwali'i, commissioned the Menehune to build the aqueduct. Their price was not gold or land, but a single opai or freshwater shrimp for each of the thousands of workers. They agreed on one condition: no mortal could watch them work. The Menehune lined up in a double row, stretching for 25 miles from the quarry in the mountains all the way to Waimea. They passed the stones from hand to hand, from the mountains to the construction site, cutting and fitting them into place throughout the course of a single night. However, a young boy, curious about the strange sounds of chanting and chipping stone, hid and spied on them. The moment the Menehune realized they had been seen, they vanished into the forest, leaving the ditch just short of its intended destination. And there it remains today, a testament to their impossible skill and a monument to their shyness. Not far from the ditch lies another, even grander, supposed creation of the Menehune, the Ale Koko fish pond. This is a massive work of aquaculture engineering, an inland pond separated from the Hukai'po River by a stone wall that is 900 feet long and 5 feet high. The wall is constructed of thousands of lava rocks, perfectly fitted together. Oral tradition holds that this, too, was a project of the Menehune, undertaken for a princess and her brother. Again, they worked for a single night, passing the stones from a village over 10 miles away. But the princess and her brother, like the curious boy at the ditch, broke their promise and watched the Menehune at work. At the first light of dawn, the rooster crowed and the Menehune, furious at being discovered, turned the royal siblings to stone. 2 rock pillars can still be seen on the mountainside overlooking the pond today. The project was left forever incomplete. So who were these master builders? Archaeologists and historians are divided. The scientific explanation attempts to strip away the myth, suggesting the Menehune were not a race of supernatural beings but a real group of people. One theory posits that they were the descendants of the very first wave of settlers to Hawaii, possibly from the Marquesas Islands, who were smaller in stature than the later, larger Tahitians who came and conquered the islands. This initial population was then displaced, pushed into the remote forests and mountains, and their history was relegated to the realm of myth. Over time, the stories of their impressive pre-Tahitian structures were embellished, their skills magnified into the supernatural abilities of the little people. There is some tantalizing historical evidence to support this. A government census conducted in the 17th century by the ruler of Kauai, Kamwali'i, actually counted the number of Menehune living on the island. The official tally was 65. Were these 65 individuals a distinct, recognized ethnic group, a separate class of people living on the fringes of society? If so, where did they go? Another theory suggests that the Menehune were not a separate race at all, but a hereditary caste of master craftspeople within Hawaiian society, a guild whose secrets were so closely guarded that they appeared magical to outsiders. This, however, fails to explain the unique and alien construction techniques of the Hukai'po ditch. Even today, the belief in the Menehune persists, especially among those who live and work in the remote parts of Kauai. Hikers deep in the Waimea Canyon or the forests of Key State Park report unsettling experiences. They tell of hearing strange, high-pitched whistling or soft, rhythmic chanting carried on the wind, only for it to stop the moment they try to locate the source. Others report fleeting glimpses of small, shadowy figures moving at the edge of their vision, figures that disappear the moment they turn their heads for a better look. There are stories of finding intricately stacked small stones or pohaku in the middle of a trail, structures that were not there on the way in. Campers have woken to find their neatly organized campsites subtly rearranged, with no tracks or evidence of who or what might have been there. The mystery of the Menehune presents us with a fascinating dilemma. Do we accept the scientific explanations that attempt to rationalize their existence into a displaced tribe or a secretive guild? These explanations seem plausible, yet they feel incomplete. They fail to capture the sheer strangeness of the evidence, the construction techniques that defy their supposed context, the enduring power of the legends? Or do we embrace the possibility that the folklore is true, that Kauai was once home to an ancient, elusive race whose skills far surpassed those of the people who came after them? Are their incredible structures the last remaining proof of a chapter of Hawaiian history that has been almost entirely lost to time? Perhaps they never left. Perhaps they are still there, hidden away in the impenetrable green depths of the Garden Isle, watching us, guarding their ancient secrets and occasionally building in the dark. For our fifth mystery, we leave the ancient jungles of Kauai and travel to the youngest and largest island in the chain, Hawaii, known to all as the Big Island. This is a land of stark and brutal contrasts. On one side you have the lush, rain-drenched coast of Hilo, a world of tropical green. On the other, the sun-scorched lava deserts of Ka and Kona. Towering over it all are the colossal shield volcanoes of Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, their peaks so high they often gather snow in the winter. But the true heart of the Big Island and the source of its deepest mystery is the ever-active volcano of Kilauea. It is a place of constant, violent creation and equally violent destruction. Here, the earth is not solid ground, but a thin crust over a sea of molten rock. The island is literally still being born before our eyes. And it is in this landscape of primordial chaos that entire communities are said to have been not just destroyed, but completely and utterly erased from existence. This is a mystery far stranger than a simple settlement being lost to time or reclaimed by the jungle. We are talking about villages that were once known, documented, and inhabited, but have now vanished with a finality that defies all logical explanation, even the all-consuming power of a lava flow. These are stories from the 19th and early 20th centuries, a time of significant change in Hawaii, when oral traditions began to be written down and the first detailed maps were being drawn. These records, from missionaries, tax collectors, and cartographers, speak of small, thriving coastal villages and inland settlements, particularly in the remote and volcanically active districts of Puna and Ka. They are marked on maps, their populations are noted in ledgers, and their names are passed down in the chants and stories of local families. Yet today, when archaeologists and historians go looking for them, they find nothing. Absolutely nothing. The immediate, rational explanation is, of course, the lava. Kilauea is one of the most active volcanoes on the planet. Over the centuries, its flows have relentlessly resurfaced vast swathes of the island, burying everything in their path under a thick black carapace of basalt. A village in the path of a major eruption would stand no chance. It would be entombed, its memory preserved only in stories. And in many cases this is exactly what happened. But the mystery of the vanishing villages involves something far more unsettling. It concerns the accounts of settlements that disappeared when there was no recorded lava flow in their specific vicinity. Or even more bizarre, tales of villages that vanished literally overnight. One of the most persistent legends comes from the desolate Ka Desert, a vast arid region in the shadow of Mauna Loa. Oral histories speak of a small fishing village nestled in a cove that was known for being a necessary stop for travelers making the arduous journey around the southern tip of the island. It was known to be there, a landmark, a place of refuge. The story, passed down through several families, tells of a small group of travelers who stayed in the village for a night, receiving food and water from the inhabitants. They continued their journey, and on their return trip just a week later they navigated to the familiar cove. But it was empty. Not destroyed, not burned, not covered in fresh lava. It was simply empty. The huts were gone. The fishing nets were gone. The stone fire pits were gone. Even the well-worn paths leading to and from the village had vanished. All that remained was the raw, untouched landscape, the black volcanic rock and the whipping wind, as if no human had ever set foot there at all. They searched for hours, convinced they were mistaken, but the unique shape of the cove was unmistakable. The village was gone. Another account from the late 1800s involves a cartographer working for the Kingdom of Hawaii. He was tasked with mapping a remote section of the Puna coast. He spent several weeks in the area, and his detailed notes and preliminary sketches clearly show a small settlement of about a dozen dwellings. He noted its name and the name of the family who served as its leaders. Due to an illness, he had to return to Hilo before his work was complete. Several months later, he sent another surveyor to finish the job, providing him with his meticulous notes and sketches. The second surveyor could not find it. He followed the first man's directions precisely, triangulated the position from known landmarks, but found only a dense grove of haya trees and ferns. There were no signs of recent clearing, no foundations, no artifacts. It was as if the first cartographer had hallucinated the entire village. When confronted, the first man stood by his record, producing detailed drawings of the people he had met and the structures he had documented. The village was there, he insisted. And then it was not. Archaeologists have been repeatedly frustrated by these stories. Armed with the old maps and the rich oral histories, they have ventured into these remote areas, hoping to uncover the physical proof of these lost settlements. They use modern technology, ground-penetrating radar to look for buried foundations, magnetometers to detect ancient fire pits. And in the locations of these vanished villages, the equipment often reveals nothing but undisturbed geology. The soil profiles show no evidence of long-term human habitation. There are no layers of charcoal, no forgotten tools, no buried remains. It is this complete and total absence of evidence that is so profoundly disturbing. It is one thing for a village to be destroyed. It is another for it to be erased, leaving not a single trace it ever was. This is where the local lore offers a chilling alternative to our understanding of physics and history. The Big Island is the domain of Pele, the goddess of the volcano. She is a creator and a destroyer, a fickle and immensely powerful deity whose whims shape the very land. To the ancient Hawaiians, and to many who live on the island today, the land is not inert rock. It is her body. Certain areas are deeply kapu, sacred and forbidden. To build a village in a place that Pele had reserved for herself, or to disrespect the land in any way, was to invite a punishment far worse than a simple fiery destruction. The stories say that Pele does not always burn what displeases her. Sometimes she simply takes it back. She unmakes it. The village and everything in it are not covered over, but are absorbed back into the land, returned to the primordial state from which they came. It is an act of divine erasure. Could it be that these villages were built on ground so sacred, their presence became an intolerable offense to forces that govern the island? Is it possible for a place to be so spiritually charged that it can reject human settlement, not through a physical eruption, but through a process we have no scientific framework to understand? These are uncomfortable questions, as they push us beyond the boundaries of known reality. But on the Big Island of Hawaii, a place where new land is born from fire every day, the boundaries of reality have always been more fluid. The vanishing villages of Puna and Ka serve as a terrifying reminder that our presence on this earth is not guaranteed. We build our homes, our towns, our lives on the surface of this planet, assuming the ground beneath our feet is a stable, permanent thing. But in Hawaii, they know better. They know the land is alive, and that sometimes what the land gives it can, without warning, take away forever. Our sixth mystery is one that, at first, seems to have a perfectly simple scientific explanation. It is a phenomenon sought after by photographers and sunset watchers all over the world. It is known as the green flash. For those who have never seen it, it is a fleeting, brilliant emerald green light that can sometimes appear on the very top edge of the sun, for just a second or two, right as it dips below the horizon. Meteorologists and physicists have it all figured out. It is an optical phenomenon, a superior mirage caused by the refraction of sunlight in the atmosphere. Just as a prism splits white light into a spectrum of colors, the Earth's atmosphere does the same to the setting sun. The red and orange wavelengths are scattered first, leaving the greens and blues. Because of the curvature of the Earth and the density of the air at the horizon, for a brief moment, only the green light is visible before it too vanishes. It is rare, beautiful, and according to science, completely understood. But in Hawaii, the stories are different. In the Hawaiian Islands, people speak of a green flash that does not obey the laws of atmospheric optics. They describe an event that is not a mere scientific curiosity, but a profound and sometimes deeply unsettling spiritual experience. They tell of flashes that last not for 1 or 2 seconds, but for 10, 20, or even longer. They speak of green light that does not just flicker on the sun's edge, but erupts in a silent, brilliant pulse that illuminates the entire sky. They report seeing it at times when it should be impossible, when the sky is hazy, or even after the sun has long since vanished. In Hawaii, the green flash is more than meteorology. It is a gateway. It is a sign that the veil between worlds is thinning, and that for a moment you are seeing something that lies beyond the confines of our physical reality. The waters off the Kona coast of the Big Island are legendary for their clarity and the unimpeded view of the setting sun over the Pacific. For generations, local fishermen have used the sunset as their clock. An old fisherman from Maloliai, a man who has spent more than 60 years on these waters, tells a story that has nothing to do with refracted light. He was out on his small boat, many miles from shore, on an evening that was unervingly calm. The water was like black glass, the sky a bruised purple and orange. As the last sliver of the sun touched the horizon, he saw it. But it was not the small, faint flicker he would seen 100 times before. This was a blindingly brilliant wave of pure emerald light that did not just appear on the sun, but seemed to surge upwards from the depths of the ocean itself. It lasted, he swears, for almost a full minute, bathing his entire boat and the surrounding sea in an ethereal green glow. He felt no warmth from it, only a profound and overwhelming silence, as if all the sound in the world had been momentarily erased. And in that silent green-lit moment, a massive humpback whale, a creature he had not seen all day, breached the surface not 50 feet from his boat. Its enormous eye seeming to look directly at him before it crashed back into the illuminated water. The moment the whale disappeared, the green light vanished, and the sounds of the ocean rushed back in. For him, this was no optical illusion. This was a communication, a sacred greeting between the sky and the sea, an event he was not meant to observe, but had been allowed to witness. These stories are not confined to the sea. On the island of Maui stands the dormant volcano of Haleakala, the House of the Sun. Its summit, over 10,000 feet above sea level, is considered one of the most sacred places in all of Hawaii, a pico or spiritual center, where the barrier between the human world and the divine world is exceptionally thin. Tourists flock there to watch the sunrise and sunset, but locals know it as a place of immense power. A couple visiting from the mainland shared an account of a sunset experience at the summit that changed their perception of reality. They watched the sun sink below the distant cloud layer, and right on cue, they saw the textbook green flash a tiny bright green that lasted for a second and was gone. They felt a sense of accomplishment, having seen the famous phenomenon. But then something else happened. Several minutes after the sun had completely disappeared and the sky was darkening into a deep indigo, a soft green glow began to emanate from the horizon where the sun had been. It grew steadily, expanding into a vast, silent, pulsing aurora of pale green light that seemed to ripple upwards into the twilight. They said the air grew strangely still and warm, and they were filled with an inexplicable feeling of peace and timelessness, as if the moment was stretching into eternity. Other people on the summit saw it too, standing in hushed, reverent silence. It lasted for nearly 5 minutes before slowly fading back into the darkness. There is no scientific model that can account for a 5-minute-long green aurora appearing after sunset. Hawaiian cosmology provides a framework for these otherwise impossible events. The ancient beliefs do not draw a hard line between the physical world, the Ao, and the spirit world, the Pa. They are intertwined, and at certain times like sunrise and sunset, and in certain places like the summit of Haleakala or the deep ocean, the boundary can become permeable. The green flash in this context is seen as the opening of a puka, or doorway. It is the last light of our world and the first light of the spirit world, made visible for a fleeting moment. It is the color of life, of mana, of the land itself. To witness an extended or unusually powerful green flash is to be granted a glimpse into the Pa. It is said that this is the light that guides the spirits of the newly deceased on their journey, the last aloha from the living world before they cross over. So what are people truly seeing? Are these simply exaggerated accounts of a known, if rare, natural phenomenon? Are the unique atmospheric conditions of the Hawaiian Islands, the clean sea air, the specific aerosol content from the volcanoes creating a more dramatic and longer-lasting version of the green flash than is seen elsewhere, perhaps? But this fails to explain the sheer strangeness of the reports. The light coming from the water, the pulsing auroras, the profound emotional and psychological impact on the witnesses. The discrepancy between the 1-second optical trick described in physics textbooks and the life-altering minutes-long celestial event described by credible witnesses is too vast to be ignored. It suggests that perhaps our scientific understanding is incomplete. Perhaps the green flash is not just one thing, but two. One a simple trick of the light, and the other something far more profound. A true opening in the fabric of the world, a momentary glimpse of the sacred, vibrant, and eternal energy that lies just beyond the horizon. Of all the mysteries woven into the fabric of the Hawaiian Islands, none are as raw, as present, and as powerful as our seventh and final subject. She is not a fleeting ghost, a hidden creature, or a strange phenomenon in the sky. To the people of Hawaii, she is a living, breathing, and terrifyingly real deity. She is the woman who eats the land, the sacred one of the burning earth. She is Pele, the goddess of fire, volcanoes, lightning, and wind. And her home, her physical body, is the Halemaumau crater at the summit of Kilauea on the Big Island. Pele is not a gentle, benevolent earth mother. She is a goddess of creation, yes, but also of pure, untamable destruction. Her temperament is as volatile as the volcanoes she commands. One moment she is calm, allowing life to flourish on the rich soil she has created. The next, she erupts in a fit of fiery rage, wiping out everything in her path with rivers of molten rock. To live on the Big Island is to live at her mercy. To accept that the solid ground beneath your feet is merely a temporary loan from a goddess who can reclaim it at any moment. This is not ancient history. This is the daily reality for thousands of people. The belief in Pele is not a metaphor. It is a fundamental law of nature. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Pele legend is her tendency to walk among mortals. Countless stories, from the 19th century to last week, describe her appearing on the desolate roads that cross the vast lava fields of her domain. She rarely appears in a grand, divine form. Instead, she tests the character of those she meets by appearing as someone vulnerable, someone easily ignored. Most often, she manifests as a stooped, elderly woman with long white hair, sometimes accompanied by a small white dog. She will be seen thumbing for a ride on a lonely stretch of road, or will appear at a doorstep asking for a drink of water or a cigarette. The stories all carry the same stark warning: how you treat this old woman determines your fate. To show her kindness, to offer her a ride or give her what she asks, is to receive her blessing, good fortune, a safe journey, or protection from harm. But to ignore her, to mock her, or to treat her with disrespect is to invite her wrath, which can manifest as sudden car trouble, a personal tragedy, or worse. There are hundreds of accounts from credible locals and bewildered tourists who have picked up this mysterious old woman, only to have her vanish from their passenger seat moments later, leaving behind only the faint scent of sulfur. A well-known story is told by a park ranger who was driving down from the Kilauea summit late one night. He saw the classic figure of the old woman on the side of the road and, knowing the legends, pulled over to offer her a ride. She got in, silent and frail, and he began the long drive towards the town of Pahoa. After several miles of quiet driving, he glanced over to ask where she was going, and the seat was empty. The door had not opened. He had not heard a sound. He was alone in the car, miles from where he had picked her up. He knew then that he had been in the presence of the goddess herself, and that he had passed her test. But Pele's most famous interaction with the modern world is the curse that bears her name. It is a simple, potent taboo: you must not take what is hers. Specifically, you are forbidden from taking any lava rocks, black sand, or shells from the Hawaiian Islands. To do so is to steal a piece of the goddess's body, and she will not tolerate the theft. The legend says that anyone who takes a rock will be followed by a streak of terrible luck. This is not just a minor inconvenience. People report losing their jobs, ending relationships, suffering from sudden illnesses, and experiencing catastrophic accidents. The bad luck, they say, will not stop until the stolen property is returned to its rightful place. This could easily be dismissed as a clever folk tale designed to protect the natural environment. But the physical proof of this curse arrives by mail every single day. The Haleakala National Park Visitor Center and post offices across Hawaii receive thousands of packages a year. Inside are lava rocks, sand, and shells, sent back by terrified tourists from all over the world. They are almost always accompanied by a letter. These letters are heartbreakingly similar. They are filled with frantic apologies addressed directly to Pele. They detail the string of calamities that has befallen the sender's life since they took the souvenir. They beg for her forgiveness and plead for the curse to be lifted. Park rangers have the solemn duty of taking these returned rocks and performing a small respectful ceremony to return them to the land, hoping to appease the goddess on behalf of the remorseful thief. One such letter, made public years ago, was from a man in Ohio. He wrote that he had picked up a small, smooth piece of lava as a memento of his honeymoon. In the month that followed, he lost his job, his wife left him, and he broke his leg in a freak accident. Convinced it was the rock, he sent it back with a desperate apology. Whether his misfortunes were a direct result of a goddess's curse or a string of tragic coincidences fueled by guilt and superstition is impossible to prove. But for that man and for the thousands like him who mail rocks back to Hawaii every year, the curse of Pele is terrifyingly real. Pele is the ultimate embodiment of Hawaii's untamable spirit. She is a reminder that no matter how many hotels we build, how many roads we pave, we are merely guests here. The land does not belong to us. It belongs to her. She is in the steam that rises from the cracks in the road, in the fiery glow that illuminates the night sky, and in the whisper of the wind across the barren fields of hardened lava. She is the living, breathing heart of the islands, a creator, a destroyer, and a powerful, enduring mystery that science will never be able to explain away. For our final mystery, we ascend from the fiery heart of Kilauea to the frozen, starlit summit of Mauna Kea. This colossal dormant volcano is the highest point in the state of Hawaii, a sacred peak that rises nearly 14,000 feet into the thin, crystalline air. To the ancient Hawaiians, this is the Wahi Pana, the sacred realm of the gods, the home of the snow goddess Peleahu. It is a place so sacred that in ancient times, only the highest-ranking chiefs were ever allowed to ascend its slopes. Today, it is home to something else, humanity's most advanced eyes on the universe. The summit of Mauna Kea hosts the world's largest and most powerful collection of astronomical observatories, a multi-billion-dollar scientific outpost dedicated to unraveling the deepest mysteries of the cosmos. And it is here, in this place where cutting-edge science and ancient divinity meet, that a profound and deeply ironic mystery unfolds. The watchers who have come to observe the heavens are themselves being watched. For decades, a steady, quiet stream of unsettling reports has trickled down from the summit. These are not stories from casual tourists or UFO enthusiasts. They come from the most credible witnesses imaginable: astronomers, observatory technicians, and engineers. People with PhDs in astrophysics, trained to observe, to document, to analyze. And what they are seeing in the skies above Mauna Kea defies the very laws of physics they have dedicated their lives to studying. They report seeing unidentified aerial phenomena, strange lights, and silent, structured craft that perform maneuvers impossible for any known human technology. The accounts are chillingly consistent. Technicians driving down the winding summit road late at night have their vehicle's electronics suddenly die as a massive, dark, triangular object silently glides overhead, blotting out the brilliant field of stars. Astronomers in the middle of a calibration have had their sensitive equipment detect fleeting, high-velocity objects moving in the upper atmosphere at speeds that would tear any conventional aircraft apart. There are stories of brilliant, multicolored orbs of light that dance and hover around the telescope domes, as if observing the observers, only to accelerate to an impossible speed and vanish in an instant. One particularly unnerving account, shared anonymously by an astronomer, described a night of perfectly clear seeing conditions. Through the peripheral vision of the main telescope, he and a colleague witnessed a faint light that grew rapidly in intensity. It was not a satellite or a meteor. It was a self-luminous sphere that came to a dead stop high above the summit. For nearly an hour it remained motionless. Then it emitted a series of brilliant rhythmic pulses of light, as if sending a signal. It then shot straight up, disappearing from view in less than a second. No sound, no sonic boom. Just an impossible act of acceleration. The event was witnessed by two highly trained professionals, yet it was never officially logged or reported. There exists an unspoken, unofficial policy at the summit: we are here to look out, not to look up at what might be looking back. To officially report such a sighting is to invite ridicule and risk a career. So the sightings are shared only in hushed tones, becoming a part of the mountain's modern folklore. The irony is staggering. At the very place where humanity has built its greatest temples to science to search for extraterrestrial life and the origins of the universe, the evidence of something inexplicable is right on the doorstep. But the mystery deepens when you consider the ancient Hawaiian perspective. To them, Mauna Kea is the umbilical cord connecting the land to the heavens. It is a place where celestial beings have always resided. Are the strange lights and crafts seen by modern astronomers simply a new interpretation of a very old truth? Are the aliens of our modern mythos just another name for the divine beings their ancestors knew walked this sacred mountain? Skeptics try to explain the sightings as secret military craft, unusual atmospheric plasma, or misidentified satellites and weather balloons. But none of these explanations fully account for the silent, non-aerodynamic craft or the impossible speeds witnessed by trained observers who know the sky better than anyone. The mystery of Mauna Kea is a confrontation. It is a direct challenge to the scientific worldview, occurring in the one place it should be safest. It asks a deeply uncomfortable question: what if the gods of ancient legend and the extraterrestrials of modern science are one and the same? What if these beings are not visitors from a distant star, but the mountain's original and eternal residents? The telescopes on Mauna Kea continue to peer into the void, searching for answers billions of light years away, while the greatest mystery of all may be silently hovering right outside their dome, waiting in the sacred darkness. We began our journey in a paradise of postcards and travel brochures, but we have journeyed far from that illusion. We have walked the shores of a beach whose crimson sands can vanish in a single night. We have listened in the darkness for the spectral drums of the night marchers, a ghostly army still bound by ancient laws. We have marveled at impossible structures of stone, said to be built by the shy, nocturnal hands of the Menehune. We have stood on the desolate lava fields where entire villages were not just destroyed, but seemingly unmade, erased from the fabric of existence. We have looked to the horizon and witnessed a green flash that was not an optical trick, but a doorway into another realm. And we have felt the living presence of Pele, the fiery goddess whose power is not a myth, but a daily, tangible reality. Finally, we ascended the sacred slopes of Mauna Kea, where the search for cosmic truth is met with an inexplicable presence in our own skies. From the land to the sea to the sky, the Hawaiian Islands are saturated with a deep and enduring mystery. These are not stories that can be neatly filed away and explained by science. They actively resist it. They challenge our modern, rigid understanding of the world and suggest that reality is far more fluid, far more ancient, and infinitely more strange than we are comfortable admitting. The beauty of Hawaii is not just in its landscapes. It is in this potent, humbling reminder that we are not the masters of this world. There are forces, laws, and beings that predate us, and which will remain long after we are gone. They are woven into the very DNA of the islands, as much a part of the place as the volcanic rock and the crashing surf. What do you think? Are these phenomena the result of unique geological conditions and the power of suggestion in a culture rich with folklore? Or are we seeing genuine evidence of something that lies beyond our current scientific grasp? The actions of ancient spirits, the work of a hidden race, or the presence of a living goddess? Some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only to be experienced. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unexplained heart of Hawaii. If you have any theories of your own, or know of a local mystery that chills you to the bone, please share it in the comments below. We read every single one. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to see that the world is far more mysterious than they believe. And as always, subscribe and ring that bell for more journeys into the dark. Stay curious and look closely at the world around you. You never know what might be looking back.